Hello, listeners, and welcome to a very special Mad Scientist podcast roundtable. I am your host, Chris Cogswell. I am joined by Marie Mayhew, our wonderful co-host. Hello, Marie.
Hello, Chris. Can I tell you how excited I am?
How excited are you?
Oh, I am literally excited.
We have been so the rest of the people that we're going to introduce soon who are hiding behind the cloth that we're about to pull from before your eyes have been texting about this nonstop for weeks, so that's very exciting. Mm-hmm. We are joined here by Sam Fredrickson from the Not Alone podcast. Say hi, Sam.
Hello.
And your podcast is phenomenal. And we're also joined by Rob Kristoffersen.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Rob. And Rob has been part of some really good podcasts. Rob will have another really great podcast coming up. But so Sam, I'm too excited. I gotta slow down here. I'm too excitable right now.
Take a breath, man.
Beautiful.
Take a breath.
Take
a breath.
Okay, we're good. We're fine. Doing good. So we wanted to first allow these two great friends of our show to talk a little bit about what they're doing, and then we're going to get into what we're calling the Lowdown, episode 1. The Lowdown, because patent pending, because we will be discussing the Low Files, a new paranormal show deep from the mind of some, I don't know, impaired person at A&E.
Whoa.
Whoa.
What do you mean impaired?
Well, cool. I mean like really drunk or like super excited on some kind of.
First of all, over at
concoction.
A&E, they only do Coke. They don't drink.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, let's get that straight. If we're gonna start
That could explain the Low Files.
No,
that's true.
That's not true.
No, we actually are.
that is not true in the least. A&E is one of my favorite networks. We're totally excited to be recapping this show.
We're extremely excited. This show is amazing. So if you haven't seen it yet, please do so. So, Sam, tell us a bit about Not Alone.
Yes, so my name's Sam. I have a co-host named Jason who couldn't make it today. And together we are the Not Alone podcast. We bill ourselves as a paranormal history show, where it's really just more spook than history. But still, every week we just tackle another big topic, another unsolved mystery or cryptid or haunting or, spirits, all of that sort of stuff. We've done stuff like The Curse of King Tut. We've done The Beast of Bray Road, Wolfmen in general, Whitley Strieber's Communion, the Mojave incident, all sorts of different UFO and paranormal cases. And we usually try to provide like a good context of like, this is the way this event happened. This is the world at that time. This is the area at that time, and just try to go as detailed as we can. So people seem to like it, I guess. I don't know. It's good.
Well, I like it.
Some people do, like us.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
It's truly one of the best podcasts out there right now. Super exciting. And if you are listening to the show and you don't listen to them, I implore you to go right now onto your podcast app, pause this show before coming back to it, and download the Not Alone podcast, because it's amazing. It's so good.
Well, thank you.
So, no problem. So, Rob, tell us about you, Rob.
Well, your listeners may recognize my voice because you did interview me before, but
It's true. It's true. I'm like, it's like we've been hit on the head with a mallet and we don't remember.
Yeah.
So let's just assume we're starting again, Rob. Who are you? What are you doing in my house?
Yeah, so I'm Rob, and Chris and I, and even Marie, we've been friends for a little while, from the arc over at Astonishing Legends, and right now I'm currently podcastless, but that's okay. Hold it, because it's coming, folks. It's coming. It's called Our Strange Skies. It's coming in January, and we're talking UFOs. UFOs and American history.
It's going to be great.
Sweet.
Yes.
Rob is like our go-to UFO guy by far.
Yes.
He knows a phenomenal amount about that topic. So I'm super excited, Rob, for it.
It's going to be a blast.
And,
it's going to be a blast.
Listeners, when it does drop, we will let you know.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, let's just jump right in then, guys. So
Lowdown.
cue intro music. Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Mad Scientist Roundtable, Episode 11, The Lowdown, Part 1. Before we start today's episode, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Strange Matters podcast, and we're going to play one of their plugs right now. Strange Matters is a show on the Dark Myths Collective. It's a really, really great show, and I think that if you enjoy our show, you're really going to especially enjoy Strange Matters. So again, the show is called Strange Matters Podcast. Please go give it a listen and a download, and go check it out. Thanks!
Hello, everyone. This is Sean.
And Eric.
And we are the host of the Strange Matters podcast.
At Strange Matters, we discuss anything just outside the norm, ranging from the bizarre and unexplained to the supernatural and paranormal and everything in between.
At Strange Matters, we cover topics like true crime, unsolved mysteries, urban legends, conspiracy theories, and unexplained paranormal events.
If this sounds like your type of show, come check us out at our website, strangematterspodcast.com, or find us on iTunes or other podcast apps. We hope to have you join us in our discussions of anything and everything strange and bizarre.
In the meantime, enjoy listening to our fellow Dark Myths podcast. Take care, everybody.
All right. Let's start by actually discussing what the Lowe Files is. So what we're hoping to do here on the Lowdown is we're going to be recapping each week's episode of this amazing show on A&E. I mean, if you haven't seen it yet, it is on A&E. It's called the Lowe Files, Lowe. And it's on demand right now, too, so you can go back and binge the first 2 episodes. That's actually what I did last night before we were going to do this episode today. So who wants to run us through, like, who is Rob Lowe? Why is it weird that he has a paranormal show on A&E?
Well, I will, since I'm the token female about here who has grown up with Rob Lowe. Let me just tell you a little bit about Rob Lowe. First of all, Rob Lowe has been an actor since he was 14 years old, and he's been acting since the 1980s. And he's been in huge, seminal movies and TV shows. He's pretty much started out in The Outsiders as Soda Pop. Going down a little bit further, he was in St. Elmo's Fire. He's been in The West Wing as... God, I can't remember the name. I want to say Sam. Yes. As the deputy communications director, and he was amazing in that. And he was on that for years.
Yeah.
And then he's most recently on Parks and Rec. Mm-hmm. And again, just another 7 years or whatever it was on that show. He's prolific, and here's the most amazing thing. The man has not physically aged or changed a day, people.
That is true.
His character...
Since the poster I've had on my wall since I was a teenager to now, same guy.
That is true.
Yeah.
Rob Lowe, so his character on Parks and Rec is probably one of my favorite parts of that show. Mm-hmm. But the character on that show is like super obsessed with his health and everything, and I always wonder, he's like, my body is, he's 40 years old, and he's like, my body is the age of a 25-year-old, and I'm always like, Rob Lowe, that's kind of just genetics for you, man.
That's just
like you just haven't aged at all. You look phenomenal still.
That's true.
So on the show itself, he says that it's him and his 2 sons. I can't remember the other son's name, but one of the sons' name is John Owen.
Yeah, the other is Matthew.
Matthew and John Owen. I wonder how Matthew missed out on the cool middle name.
Second first name, yes.
First name.
But that's not even a cool. That's not even a cool name. You can't even be. You can't be like J.O. Hey J.O.
Yo Joe.
That's about all you can do.
It's true.
Does he have another middle name? Do we know this?
Is it like
no
John Owen Samuel? I don't know.
Dang. All right.
Maybe. I don't know. Oh, we aren't prepared about the name. Oh, damn it. We didn't have name section written on the research table, guys.
It's cursory.
Right.
It is cursory. We're fine.
But I will say really quick to answer your question, Chris, why is it strange that he is hosting a paranormal show? It's like if you would think of anybody that would be buying in and doing something like this, he's probably the furthest from anyone's mind, right?
Yeah,
if you were like, a famous person is going to do a paranormal research podcast, you'd be like, oh, okay. Someone like maybe, Nimoy, if he was still alive. Perfect. But Rob Lowe and his sons.
Yeah, he hasn't really. He's kind of. I mean, I think partly he stayed pretty under the radar in terms of like, I don't know, paparazzi or he hasn't been like outsidewardly religious or spiritual in any way to make it so that like, okay, well, he has an interest in these kind of things, and then on top of that too, not to say that you have to be religious or spiritual to have an interest in these things, but just that, I don't know, it seems like that would be a potentially like a easy transition for a celebrity to make it, in my mind at least. But on top of that too, he hasn't really starred in that many science fiction movies or shows. He always kind of plays like a slim businessman or older man dating, a I don't know, female lead character nowadays. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't really been, like you were saying, like Nimoy, or even, I don't know, like I remember there was I think Tom Hanks, or no, Morgan Freeman did that show about
Through the
finding
Wormhole.
God or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that Through the Wormhole as well, and all those.
The greatest show ever. Like, the best show ever.
They were really good shows, but I remember thinking, like, when it came out, I was like, is this just because he played God in that one movie?
Yes.
Like, what is the link here between Morgan Freeman and, I don't know, religious studies, But anyways, so the Lowe Files, the first episode was on a haunting. Rob, what's the name of the castle that they were at?
It's called Preston Castle.
Called Preston Castle. Okay, you want to give us some background on that thing?
So basically, back in the 1890s, it was purchased from a coal and iron company, and they built on it. Preston Castle is basically a school for, well, it's kind of a school, but really it's kind of a home for child convicts, basically wards of the state.
It's like a delinquent. It's sort of a delinquent home, and you have to remember too that this was during the time period where where the idea of reforming a criminal or reforming a child criminal even. The way that they reformed you was they beat the evil out of you.
Yes.
Right? It's not like, this was kids were going to juvenile hall and taking GED classes and things. Not to say that juvenile hall is a piece of cake nowadays anyways. I have no idea what it's like. I'm sure it's terrible still. Like all prison generally is terrible. You know what I mean? But when we say home for delinquents, we mean like a house where people came to beat children for fun.
Actually, I would say it's more like a castle in which to beat children, because it really is. If you look at it, it is ginormous, and like just going into kind of, it's got 5 floors, and it had 77 rooms. But it also had a tennis court. It had supposedly a 7,000 book library, a rose garden, in which there's a story about some kids taking interest in in that garden, and it turns out that they were growing pot in that garden at one point. But
Nice.
There are actually some famous people that came through. Most notably, Merle Haggard stayed there and escaped twice. And
So we can cross him off of the list of people that probably is actively haunting.
Right. Actually, they wanted,
and he's still alive.
They wanted to do a fundraiser because they've been talking about restoring it for years and years, and the numbers that they've been throwing around are between like $15 million and $30 million. So they wanted to have Merle Haggard come and play like a tribute show when he was still alive, and he said no.
What kind of terrible marketing idea is that?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you probably got physically abused here. Do you want to come help out? Just come on, pull your weight, Merle.
How about just play a set for us?
So physically
Fight back the
abused.
memories of abuse.
So physically abused that apparently he had the impression of a 2x4 still on his body. And he actually got a tattoo in that location.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's horrendous. I mean, so things.
Let's
so here's
lighten
the
it
thing.
up just a tiny bit, though. We can go back to...
Let's go back to Rob Lowe. Let's go back to
Rob Lowe,
the shining light that
I'm
is Rob Lowe.
sorry to bring down the mood here, but
Damn,
fine.
y'all.
We're just going to close that door.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep going over here.
So, needless to say, messed up things happened at this location. Like, if if there was a place that was going to be haunted, this is probably up there on the list. This is like top 50 percentiles of haunted places, right? Or likely haunted places.
It's a good bet.
So, yeah, it's a pretty good bet. So the idea of this show is that it's Rob Lowe and his two sons, who I guess have had a lifelong interest in the paranormal. And, like, even in the beginning, they kind of show some cute, like, videos of them, like, searching for Bigfoot when the kids were younger and things.
Which is adorable.
It is,
which is really
cute.
cool.
It is adorable.
It's just really, it was legitimately cool for me to, I don't know, think like, because, you know, that's the kind of stuff, I mean, you know, we never searched for Bigfoot in my family or anything, but, like, that's the kind of things, like, you know, we would watch scary movies and then, like, go read books about witches or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of cool stuff that made me want to do this show, and I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this show or listen to other shows like this or do their own shows, I'm sure it's those kind of memories of, like, a family member talking to you in the woods, like, you know, Bigfoot lives here and stuff like that. That really drives these shows.
Yeah.
But here's the weird kind of ironic thing about this open that I thought that I was watching. So you're watching it, and the theme music they have is Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult in the 70s, which, if you think about the song and what is your memories or what is associated the most with that song is, most recently, besides it being a legitimately spooky song, if you look at the lyrics to it, it's an SNL skit.
Yep.
With more cowbell and Christopher Walken.
Yes.
So you're immediately kind of has this weird juxtaposition. Is Rob Lowe serious? Is he serious about this? Because he feels serious, but then you've got this you've got this really nice open about the family, and they look Bigfoot, and it's sort of, you have this tender moments, and then you have sort of this, not schlocky, but very very dramatic cuts, and Don't Fear the Reaper come in, and you're kind of wondering, like, if you're being punked.
Right.
It's a little hard. Actually, I think that was Rob. You were saying that was something that kind of hit you right off the bat too, right? Was the way that it was edited.
Yeah, the editing is so weird in this show.
Yeah.
But the way that they edited that together, I'm like, I really don't know if I'm supposed to take you seriously. Like, what's going on here?
But you know what though? For me, it's one of those things where other like Sam, because you guys kind of take this approach too to these stories that we do here, which is why I think we're such good pod friends.
Pod brother.
If I can call us pod friends.
No, dude, we're pod family. Don't.
Oh
even.
my goodness!
Come on, boy.
Love fest. Okay, so with these stories, you have to take them a little bit comedically. Sometimes,
Oh yeah.
right. Because I mean, they're not always like, oh my god, I was abducted and I had a horrific experience and I have scars and whatever. Sometimes it's like I got drunk in the woods and I thought I saw Bigfoot, so I ran out of the woods. You know what I mean? Like sometimes they are comical stories. And so in a field like this too, I think it's important that you don't take yourself, or you don't take everything too seriously, because otherwise you end up, I mean, you almost necessarily end up sounding like even if you're trying to be well-intentioned, you end up sounding like a conspiracy nut. You end up sounding like you know, Alex Jones or something, right? And I actually thought that was one aspect of the show that I actually found to be really, really nice, was the transition between the lighter moments of the show and saying, you know, well, this is fun, like this is a cool hobby that me and my sons have, you know, and then putting it in the context then of seeing them legitimately scared, right? Like that to me shows it much more than like the ghost, not to like, we're trying not to get on too many paranormal shows, bad sides here,
right? But
like, let's just say there's one show on another channel and the name of the show rhymes with, Boast Fab Benchers. Yep. Okay. Yep. And
I don't know if I'm familiar with that.
It rhymes with it. Okay. It rhymes with it. We're not going to say any names, but those guys, the people on this show, come out and were like, yo, we're going to find ghosts today. It's serious. They could kill us, even though they've never killed anybody in history ever.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you guys, you need to calm down. You know what I mean? Like the guys walking through the haunted mansion, throwing holy water around and being like, you know, die, demon! And it turns out it's a raccoon.
Right.
And you're like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, it's not always, doesn't always have to be that scary. And when there are legitimately scary moments, then it takes away from it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sam. Go ahead.
Oh, well, what I was going to say is, regarding the feel of the show, like, you really get the sense that this is, and like, watching that intro and all of that, like, when he was like, we're going to go on a hunt for Bigfoot, I was, like, sitting there like, shit, this is what I want. This is the father I want to be. You, like, get this feeling that they really are just there to have family bonding and stuff. And Rob Lowe in this seems like just such a real, like, he's still Rob Lowe, but he's like such a real normal person that it's so, like, it's beautiful in its own way. And like, looking at, like, with what you said about treating things like with, you know, a little bit of comedy and stuff. I mean, I know from our show, like, there is stuff that if I treat as seriously as maybe I ought to, I will go crazy. Like, I will get scared. I will not sleep.
Yeah.
Like, and it's the same sort of thing. Like, humor is that unifying force throughout humanity where, like, everybody likes to laugh, and laughter can, like, frickin' make anything better. And I mean, that's just part of why it's so beautiful and so cool. But that's my 2 cents. That's what I got.
No, I 100% agree. I, like, honestly, watching this show, I didn't have a bad opinion of Rob Lowe previously. Like, I had a good opinion of Rob Lowe generally. But watching this and, like, watching his kids and everything and the way they interact with him, and even, like, his wife on the phone being like, be careful, it made you feel like this really was something, like, Rob Lowe went to the station and was like, or went to the TV network and was like, hey, I would love to do this cool thing with my kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it almost felt like they were filming it. Like, it felt very intimate and very cool. And I really did like that aspect of the, you know, it reminded me a lot of Destination Truth with Josh Gates.
Yeah.
You know,
I love that show.
It really reminded me of those. Yeah, me too. That show's phenomenal, right? So, I think, Low Files was amazing. So, okay. So we're up to the intro now. And they're going to this spooky castle, and they stop for a donut.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, even before that, you guys.
Before that, he wants to take.
They're driving, and they're in this monolithic car, and they're like talking about. This was probably one of my favorite parts because they're talking about how it's the male family, and it's almost like they're going off to war or something. And they've left behind childish things, and they're going on this adventure, and they're in this ginormous ship, and it's like the Odyssey or something.
It is. It truly is.
And you're like, they are. You know, again, maybe it's the humanities major in me, but they're hearkening back to sort of this Greek mythos only. And then all of a sudden, they're like, oh my God, look how beautiful that is. That's so incredibly beautiful. Pull the car over. They pull the car over, and they're like, it's a deer! You know? And it's like, oh my God, you guys, what the hell are you? These ghosts are going to kick your ass. Get back.
Yeah, what's going on?
Sweet baby Rob Lowe.
There's just this effortless enthusiasm coming out. Like, Rob Lowe could not be happier about any
he's
of this.
pumped. He's pumped to be on this show.
And his kids, like, the thing I love about his kids is there's, like, John Owens, the younger of the two, who sits in the back, is you can tell he's got, like, a nice, healthy dose of skepticism. Like, he's just... He's not entirely... He's sitting back there, and he's eyeing his dad, he's eyeing his brother. He's like, shit, I took off of school for this in some ways. You get that kind of vibe. And then... that's what I thought. It's like, it is this family moment. And then they get to the donut shop, which is... Because Rob Lowe's hungry after seeing a deer.
Oh yeah, it tires a man out.
It's an exciting.
I don't think it was totally just the seeing the deer. It was the cops telling him to get back in his vehicle.
That's true. They did do that.
Oh
as well.
right.
Yeah.
Oh right. I completely forgot about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can't just stop anywhere.
No.
We have to get back in the car.
Even if you're Rob Lowe, you can't just stop anywhere. They're people too. Wonderful. So he stops at this donut shop, and they stop. Okay, I think Rob Lowe. I know you guys are gonna disagree with me here. I feel like Rob Lowe had high expectations of that donut shop, considering they stopped at 3 p.m.
Agree. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Donut shops, like the best donut shops I've been to, are open from like 3 a.m. until noon, and then they close because the workers have to go to sleep to be ready to give me a donut at 3 a.m. when I'm coming home from the bars. Okay, right. That's what a donut shop does. So It was just so funny. And then, I don't want to spoil the end. Whatever. I guess we're going to. I loved that after the fact, like, he's there looking for ghosts, and you'd think that would be the story that the news, like, you know, if the news found out that Rob Lowe's in their town, they're like, well, what are you here for? He says, I'm looking for ghosts in this castle. You'd think that the newspapers would be all over that. No. Instead, the next morning on, like, the local TV news channel, I guess, they play the story of Rob Lowe going to that donut shop and picking a chocolate frosted donut.
Oh, yeah. At 3 in the afternoon. And that's when
what is going on?
Emphasized the time, which I thought was actually pretty good of the Lowe files, too. Because he was sort of like, that's when he broke with the fourth. And that's the other thing I do love about this show is him breaking is it the third wall or the fourth wall? He addresses the audience directly.
The fourth wall.
Like,
it's
the fourth wall, you're part of it. Yeah. And he's like, I don't know about these donuts, people. And he's looking at him, and you're like, I don't know either, Rob Lowe. What's going on?
We're with you on this road trip. We're having a great time.
We're having a great time.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
But only after he couldn't park that vehicle. Which, again, he couldn't, Odysseus couldn't dock the ship. It was awesome.
So, like, to me, the overarching theme of this episode is that celebrities are real people, too. They can't just park on the side of the road and go look at deer. No. They can't just go get a donut at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It doesn't work like that.
There's not some magic celebrity-only donut shop.
Yeah.
That's working all the damn time. Yeah, no, it was really interesting. Seeing, yeah. I mean, it almost felt more like a reality show than any reality show I've seen in the last 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
You know, really. Like, because this was like legitimately, this was stuff that was going on. They didn't seem to edit out too much of it. It was just really, I thought that section was fun and interesting. But it did take them, I felt like it took a long time for me to find out where the heck they were.
Yeah.
Like they kept saying they were in the Twin Cities, but I'm in the Twin Cities and I've never been to that donut shop. So like,
do you want to go to the same donut shop as Rob Lowe? Is that what's going on here?
Well, no, like they kept saying they were in the donut shop. They kept saying they were in the Twin Cities, and then I like Googled where the place is, and it's in California. Yeah, they did.
Oh.
And the town they were in was called like Gata or something. But yeah, it was really about
artistic misdirection.
Yeah,
on the
maybe I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. I thought that was strange. All right. Anyway, so they get now they're in the they get to this place, and from far away there's one moment in the show where they're driving over a hilltop, and they come to the top, and all of a sudden you see this castle looming over the town.
Yeah. That was awesome.
And it's like I mean, yeah, that was a great shot. That was like a legitimately, I mean, you can just imagine being a kid in like, you know, the 1940s, 1930s, whatever, and being, you know, moved to this place on an old rickety bus or something, and seeing it for the first time and just thinking like, oh my God, I am in trouble, you know?
Well, and it was interesting too because they hit it right at the golden hour. So it's perfectly shot. Like,
yeah.
That was, I think, a lot of intent. But while they're on their way there, let's not forget the call, the FaceTime home to the missus, who tells them, you better not be going to this haunted place without who?
Shaman John.
Shaman John.
Well, sweet boy.
I think also the greatest thing, too, is like, I think it's like John Owen when they're driving, and he's like, well, what's going to differentiate our show from any other show, like in the way they do it? And Rob Lowe's like, well, you know Shaman John, right? We got a shaman.
Yeah, he was like, we have a shaman. Which we have, listen, we have a lot of questions here on this show about Shaman John.
We also have a lot of strong opinions here.
We also have a lot of strong opinions. Number one, so Sam, I'm gonna let you take the reins on this one for now.
Good. Okay. So let's just, hello listeners, let's have a chat. I'm gonna preface this by saying I have absolutely no like education my grandfather was like the head of the Native American schools program in Pendleton, Oregon, but that's about all I have as far as like formal training towards Native American beliefs. But I do know one thing. You can't be a white shaman. You just can't. It's not something that happens. Now, I know a lot of you are out there saying, well, Sam, first off, maybe you're being racist. Who knows at this point? But you can't be a white shaman. And here's the thing why, is you have for sure the biggest argument is like, well, all of these different cultures, the Chinese, even the Vikings, African culture, all of these places have different holy men, medicine men of their own stripe and all of that. So why can't a white person be a shaman? And it's not that a white person can't like be spiritually inclined or attempt to communicate or hold like, I don't know, hold sway over the spirit world. That can happen, but he's not a shaman. For just like on a linguistic level, a shaman is a Native American spiritual healer, medicine man. And the thing about the Native American tribes, obviously to be a shaman, you have to be well versed in this religion and this lore, these rituals, which are kept very close to the chest.
Yeah, it's almost like it's kind of like the difference between being a line cook and being a chef.
Exactly.
Right? There's a shaman suggests. So I actually had a couple of things on this too. Shaman suggests something like an honor. It's an honorary title, right? Mm-hmm. Just because you're spiritual or I don't know, come to a place and be like, oh, I'm cleansing this area with my water bottle or whatever. That does not mean that you're a shaman. Like being a shaman suggests that a group of people practicing a certain religion have accepted you to be in communication. That's another important part of this, is that you're in communication with the spirit realm, and you're also well learned enough and well versed enough to guide people in their spiritual things. You know what I mean? In their spiritual thoughts.
Right.
Sam, Chris, let me just pose a question at you here.
Okay.
That may change your thinking.
On board.
What if the shaman hails from Malibu?
That does not change my thinking at all, Murray.
No, it doesn't change. It might even make mine go the other. It might make me more entrenched in my thinking.
Exactly.
Malibu, California?
Okay, now you're talking. I thought you meant Malibu, Ohio.
Yeah.
I was like, no
or
way.
Malibu, Kansas.
Right. So here's the other thing too with this as well. Shamanism also suggests something about you're a practitioner of a non-Western religion,
right?
Number one, right? And on top of that too, a shaman is someone who and I don't want to use the term too broadly here, but a shaman generally is someone who does something, a ritual, or drinks something, or eats something, or does something to enter into an altered state of consciousness,
right,
to then have a spirit speak through them, right?
Peyote,
being a shaman,
ayahuasca,
exactly, yeah. Being a shaman is different than. It's not just a cool word for your buddy who says he can see ghosts and smoke some pot with you,
right?
Like a shaman is someone who it's a holy person. It's like, I don't know, if there was some, I don't know what the Chinese equivalent of Rob Lowe would be, but if there was some Chinese equivalent of the Lowe Files and they had some random dude come on and be like, hey, I'm Pope Zalong. You know what I mean? And you'd be like, that, no, you can't be the Pope. The Pope is like a title. It means something different.
Exactly.
And
so if any of our listeners out there have a recommendation for who the Chinese Rob Lowe would be,
yes,
tweet it out.
Please reach out.
Chinese Rob Lowe.
We need to know. We need to know this.
That'd be pretty phenomenal. That'd be pretty great.
The other thing, really quick, one more thing.
Yeah.
I want to say, I need to make this known about Shaman John because I've been thinking this over and over. First off, I don't think Rob Lowe should be friends with Shaman John. Okay, if you watch him, Shaman John seems to me like the kind of guy who shows up at like big mucky muck parties and he like rubs elbows with people and then he like waits until the opportune moment. Then he's like, oh my goodness. Oh, you're Rob Lowe. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Here, come here, let's talk. And then they talk. And then, like, whether it's through a Wikipedia search or, like, somebody's got a bug in his ear or something, he says, like, something deeply, like a pop-off. He's like a pop-off. And says something that identifies. And then from there, he, like, manipulates him for fame and fortune. So that's one thing about Shaman John. And I'm sorry, Shaman John, if you're listening to this. That's what I think of you. Wow, this got a lot more personal now.
I just also
words. Holy,
I'd like to know.
Crap.
I'd like to know one thing. Shamans and Shaman John did do this. Shaman John does not read from the Bible or
Right.
anything.
Oh
The shaman
my
does not do
God.
that.
No.
Oh
It's
my
like,
God.
It's complete. It's like super. I mean, again, like the word, offensive. Being offended and stuff like that is kind of like people. I mean, I don't know. We're just a bunch of millennials,
Right.
but still, like it is like it's offensive, frankly, and it's just. And besides that too, it just seems like a really ham-handed misreading of like what everything else about the show is so perfect.
Oh yeah.
And then Shaman John shows up and is like, "No, I'll cleanse the spirits with my, he
Dirt
like
water.
pulls out
I think it was
like
coconut
traditional
water.
Yeah, he pulls out like a maraca and like a drink thing and whatever. And the thing is too, we don't know what Shaman John's. We don't know what. I mean, who knows? Maybe Shaman John was like raised and born in a native religious culture. You
Like
know what I
maybe.
mean? Like we don't know. We don't know that. I would have liked when he reads from the Bible. That's a little silly. Or he doesn't even read from the Bible. He just kind of like tries to do a Bible-y sounding thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of silly. And then on top of that too, they just like put the word shaman out there, and you're like, it's just some like dude with like a beard and Birkenstocks and
Right.
stuff, and you're like, I don't think this guy's a shaman.
This guy's not a
I don't
shaman.
think-
I
So-
just
No.
don't see. I don't see a shaman looking like a cross between Errol Flynn and the brawny paper towel guy. I just don't.
Exactly.
No. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I found I found the term for him, and it's a plastic shaman is what it's referred to. It's someone who pretends to be spiritual or well versed, or is a white person pretending to be a Native American. Literally, one of the uses for it, and uses that for fame and recognition and money and that. So that he's a plastic shaman. That's my opinion. Shaman John, if you want to talk about this, reach out at Not Alone Pod on Twitter. We can talk about it. All right, I'm
Did
done.
you just-
That's my
let's-
piece.
But Sam, here's the issue. Only
right.
one of us can be blocked from.
Oh no,
It's hard.
we can all
goodness.
get blocked.
Which is probably we're probably on
Marie is an unfortunate thing happened with Marie. We're not going to get into it here on this episode, but an unpleasantness has occurred with Marie and a certain
was
star
blocked.
of our favorite new
I'll tell you
paranormal
what.
show.
I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what it is, because this is why I'm doing this show. Gentlemen, in all seriousness, bite our
right.
tongues.
All right.
I am
It's
doing
bit-
this show because, one, I was unceremoniously, shaman or otherwise, blocked from the Lowe files on Twitter. I have no idea why. I
Wow.
made no.
Marie has been
Here's
bad.
the thing. Here's the thing, gentlemen. I am doing this to win Rob Lowe back. I don't know what I did. Baby, I don't know what I did. Tell me I didn't love you quite as often as I should.
Oh wow. This is going
How
in a
could
great
you say
direction.
no to that voice?
Rob?
Listen to
Rob,
that, the
listen to this.
crooning.
Rob Lowe.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rob
I-
Lowe, not Rob Kristoffersen.
You are always on my
okay.
mind, Rob. You are always Rob Lowe. You are always on my mind. And this whole recap, totally to win you back.
Can you just
Now I
off
can't
band.
stop hearing Willie Nelson in my head.
Can you imagine
Little
Rob Lowe?
things I should have said and done,
Rob Lowe they're in their car, they're driving home.
but I never
They-
took the time.
He looks at his Google mentions.
You are always on my mind. Keep going. I'm
He
just doing the background music for you.
sees that
Wow.
he's gonna look at this thing and he's gonna go, who the hell is Rob Kristoffersen, Chris Cogswell, Marie Mayhew, Sam Fred? Who the hell are these people? And he's gonna find out, and we're all gonna get blocked, Marie.
Well, Shaman
what's
John's
happening.
going to be like, I'll tell you who they are.
I have a feeling. I have a feeling I'm gonna be the first victim, just given how my name is on Twitter right now.
That's true.
Oh, it's true.
Shaman
it's true.
Rob.
Right now, Rob is Shaman Rob. Hilarious.
But he's got an alien head between Shaman and Rod, or after.
It's
Shaman
at the
Rod.
end.
It's true.
So,
it seems a little bit
Sorry,
different.
I didn't mean to hijack us with a little.
It's fine. It's
It's cool.
absolutely.
It's cool.
It had to be said. It had to be put out
I'm
there.
still waiting
So
for
we're-
that Smiths totally karaoke episode that you guys are supposed to do at some point because
Oh yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
coming.
yeah.
That's true.
right around the corner on that one.
Let us
Okay.
get to something really upsetting, and then we're just gonna it'll be Morrissey nonstop. Just completely sadness.
We're with Matthew. We're with John Owen. We're with
right.
Shaman John, and we're with Rob Lowe. And they are now. There's some hijinks at the hotel
wait,
where they look in the well and stuff.
Yeah, it's
I just realized. Sorry, I don't want to say. Do you think they started calling him John Owen for the show because there was John Owen and Shaman John?
No,
No,
It was always
because
John
nope.
Owen. He was always John Owen.
Oh,
and Shaman
okay.
John so far has only been on one episode, so
Oh, that's true.
hopefully
okay,
it doesn't come
yeah.
back.
I don't know, that intro has some really ritualistic stuff going on, so you never know. You might see Shaman
Here's
John
the-
again.
One more thing, one final bit on Shaman John too. I just want to say. So I think Rob Lowe, don't let yourself get Rasputined.
Oh,
Okay.
that's exactly it. Holy shit,
That is
Chris.
exactly it.
You are so
Listen,
right.
Dude, Rasputin is like the perfect version of this because it always happens, right? Like there's always like a. I mean, whatever. Who knows? But anyways, just it's an interesting question, and I just wanted to say the Rasputin thing once,
Yeah.
so like I could get that response from Sam. Very happy I got that. That's good.
Yeah.
Now we can continue. Okay, so now they're actually they're at the hotel. They look at the well, which I guess a girl fell down or something and died.
Regardless,
Yeah.
kind of creepy.
Yes.
That was
It is
a
creepy.
nice creepy touch. I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah, that was strange.
You're winning me.
Wells are always scary.
Yeah, what else, man?
Yeah. And then they get to so let's dive right into the actual investigation itself.
Yes.
Right? So the main ghost that they're looking for is a woman who's I can't do any of you guys know what the name
Yeah,
is?
her name is...
What her name was?
Hold on a second. Let me find it.
Okay.
Her name was Anna. Anna Corbin.
Anna Corbin, right. And so they're looking specifically for Anna Corbin because she was, I guess, a maid who worked at the reformatory or the juvenile hall, whatever we're calling this place, the castle.
Boys Haunted Reformatory.
Boys
It's-
Haunted Reformatory.
There we go.
Boys Haunted Reformatory. Marie, you might have just made our first ever not just logo t-shirt.
That's what the episode's title is.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
a good one.
Yeah.
Boys Haunted
Oh, is it really?
Reformatory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Crap. All right, well, never mind then.
That's already taken.
I thought every episode was called the Rob Lowe Files.
It is. The Rob Lowe
straight up.
Files.
Like George
Colon.
Foreman's kids are all George.
The Boys Haunted Reformatory.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Okay, so they're at this place. They're looking for this Anna Corbin, and the whole reason is that she had been. They don't mention ever she had actually been violently attacked or anything, but she had been found strangled to death in a room of the reformatory, and supposedly, like she was living in a house with 77, convicted child criminals, I guess, that are being abused and emotionally stunted and physically attacked and whatever. So a little bit of murder here or there is to be expected, but. So she is murdered, and supposedly she's like the ghost that people see or tend to hear or something like that. And so they decide to do like a nighttime investigation, whatever, and they pull out their detectors. And so this is the part that I kind of wanted to get into a little bit, is these detectors. So anyone that's listened to our show regularly knows that I have a big, bad feeling about these stupid ghost detectors. Mm-hmm. One in particular, I just wanted to throw out some numbers here. So an EMF reader that they use on these ghost shows, the average range for them is from 0 to 20 microtesla. Okay? And a Tesla is a unit for magnetic field strength. And so that also corresponds to between 0 and 10,000 Gauss. Okay? Or milligauss, rather. 0 and 10,000 microgauss. It's up to 100 milligauss. And so whenever they see readings on that show, that's the range they're working with, right? Because they don't have industrial strength electromagnetic field readers, because if they did, they would not be able to hold them up and move them around, right? On top of that, too, the detectors that they're using are not measuring DC current if they're using a good one. They're measuring AC currents. They're measuring AC fields, rather. And the difference between those two is that a DC field is one that's static. So that's why they can say they're not measuring things like the Earth's magnetic field. Okay? So the Earth's magnetic field is out. But there is a problem in that
ghostly voices are back in.
Well, here's the problem with these EMF things, right? The problem with them is that they measure electromagnetic fields. They're supposed to be able to measure them from all three directions, right? Like, think about it. You're looking for a field that's propagating from someplace, right? But it has to be coming from someplace in three-dimensional space around you. That makes sense?
Okay, I guess.
But but whenever they're doing their reading, they're always just holding it in one spot. What you're supposed to do with them is you're actually supposed to move them around a room systematically so you can pinpoint where in three-dimensional space the source of the electromagnetic field is. So they're actually using at their start they're using these field readers incorrectly.
So Rob Lowe's been doing it wrong?
Not just Rob Lowe, Marie. All of ghost hunting on TV.
Tell Marie, I've been doing it wrong this whole time. I have all those meters.
Shit. Okay, now here's the thing. Rob. This might be a good sign. If you have one that is multipolar or tri-directional, then it can actually do that measurement correctly by just holding it still.
Okay.
Okay,
Rob
but those
might
ones
be
are
doing it right.
He might be doing it right, but it's something important to mention for people that go on these ghost hunts themselves or whatever. You want to be able to get a good meter that's actually going to be able to. You're actually going to be able to use it correctly the way that you see it on TV. Now, here's the other problem. Remember, I said it was 0 to 19.99 microtesla.
Yes.
Okay.
They never mention the magnitude of the reading they're getting.
No.
Right?
I know.
Well,
it's always a binary thing.
Also,
it's always either there's no reading or there is a reading.
That's also kind of misleading, though, to begin with, because at one point, Rob Lowe's talking to Shaman John about it, and he's saying that if you get any fluctuation on this at all, that's a sign that something's happening. And I'm like,
exactly.
No, that's not right, because if you go from point 1 to point 2, that does not mean that, oh my God, there's a spirit right there. No.
So here's that's a perfect point, and that's one I wanted to mention here. A fluorescent light, like the kind you would see in an old building, gives off a magnetic field of 0.5 to 2 microtesla. A radio gives a 1 microtesla reading. Dishwashers can be up to 3 microtesla, and a vacuum cleaner, just because of the rotation, can be as high as 20 microtesla. It can actually maximize out one of those readers.
Oh yeah, I've tested one on a vacuum, and it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's at 30 centimeters distance. So magnetic fields also dissipate quite quickly with distance away. But it's just something important to keep in mind. These EMF readers aren't super great. And they're not being really used in a accurate enough way to be able to tell anything in these ghost hunting shows, but whatever, I'm a nerd, I care about that kind of stuff, so that's the good stuff.
What about
if
it asks for dessert?
Now, Marie, we're getting to the good stuff. The stupid ovulus. Oh my God. What a stupid
dude, it's amazing.
thing.
What are you talking
It's
about?
not amazing.
Come on.
Chris,
It was
Chris,
sweet.
I will fight you.
It seemed hungry.
Okay, listen to me. Ready? Okay, listen. There are 2 modes in the ovulus. There is one mode called dictionary mode, and what that does is it will, based on the electromagnetic reading it gets, it'll get a word out of a dictionary of the highest one they have right now is 2,048 words.
That's a lot of words, though.
Is that a lot of words?
That's more words than I said today.
What if every word though is things like death and ghost and scary and like scab?
It wasn't.
You know what I mean?
It wasn't Christopher Cogsworth. It was pie.
Pie.
Okay, now
non-believer.
Let me Let me just say
dessert.
this. Let me just say this too.
Nothing about death.
Let me say this too. The other mode, which is the mode that they were using on the show, it had to be, is called the phonetic mode.
Okay.
And what that does is it picks, based on the EMF signal it's getting in, it'll make just sounds basically, and then the sounds will come together into a word. And so that's when you can get words like pie, or even they claimed that the thing said Corbin, the name of the woman in the room. Now, the reason why it said pie was because they walked into the kitchen and then the thing just was like pie, and then Rob Lowe was like, his sons were just like looking at him like, Dad, that means nothing. And he was like, but it said pie. This is a kitchen. Pies go in kitchens, John Owen. Now here's an interesting thing though. Which of those two modes do you think is the most likely to give you? Let me rephrase this. Between those two modes, you're picking from a dictionary of words or you're doing phonetic sounds. What do you think the manufacturer claims is the most accurate mode, or rather the mode that is the least likely to give you a false positive?
I would say phonetic.
Yeah,
You'd say phonetic, right? I would think so too. This is on Ovulus's own information. They claim that the phonetic mode will give you a correct answer 1 out of 71 times.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying that there's a really good chance.
There's a really good chance it was hungry. That poor little machine was hungry, or it just wanted to round out. It just wanted to do the circumference of a circle. It was one of the...
So, in other words, the Ovulus in phonetic mode, you have you actually have a better chance of getting the Ovulus in phonetic mode to give you a word that seems to fit the situation than you are to draw a 3 of a kind hand in poker, in 5-card poker. So...
Still doable.
That's the point. It's that it's extremely doable. It's very easy to get a positive there. So... In my estimation, the Ovilus is like the worst tool they could use. The EMF reader is like probably a better tool if you think any of that stuff is actually happening anyways. But I had to do the Ovilus thing. It makes me so mad every time I see it.
It's a buzz tool. It really is like this buzz that like other shows got, and it's like, oh hey, this is certain it's going to give us what we want, and there's no guaranteed tools for doing stuff like this.
I appreciate that, and I believe that. But what about it when like the pie is stupid and weird, and like I think at one point, I'm sorry, Marie, I'm sorry, and at another point,
no, that's all right, it's all right.
When they're like out in the graveyard, it either says hell or it says Bible or something like that.
Bible, yeah.
Bible. Okay,
Bibles.
Okay, so be it. But the device said the name of the dead person. Like that's not going to be in the dictionary, and like phonetically, I don't know, man. That's spooky.
So that was
the one. In all seriousness, that was the one that I was like, "Hey, Rob Lowe, you might have a point."
No, me too. Me too. I will 100% say when it said Corbin and that was the woman's last name, I was like, "Wow, that was a good hit they got." You know what I mean? And listen, I trust Rob Lowe enough to think that they're not making any edits to the show after the fact or anything.
Yeah, it seems
you know what I mean?
so
like,
genuine. That's the thing. It seems so real.
Exactly. So that was, I think, a legitimately good hit.
Okay.
Right? I think that was a legitimately good hit. That was probably, I would argue, I mean, even when it said pie, actually, that's still like that would still count as a hit,
right?
Even though it's silly. They are like going to a kid. I mean, if she had been like smothered in pie to death or something.
Oh Lord!
Wow,
what a wonderful way to die.
I know.
It'd be phenomenal.
That's not a happy
the other thing that was really interesting with when it said Corbin was at first it said like brutal or like violent or something.
Right.
It said beat. It said beat. And they were like, "Oh, this is where she was beaten to death." And John Owen was like, "No, she wasn't beaten to death. She was strangled."
Actually, there was.
And then the thing
there was one of the articles I read said that she was beaten pretty bad. Yeah.
I'm certain. Yeah, I mean, I'm certain she probably was. But what I really liked about that was then immediately after he says, "Well, no, that's a ridiculous thing," it then went Corbin, and he was like, "That's the woman's name."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Now,
like that was a very, I would argue, a very strong hit.
The only thing I would think about that is like if it said something that sounded somewhat like Corbin and you just sort of that's the interpret because I didn't hear what I heard it say "Rrr," and they were like Corbin.
I wrote down actually most of the words that it got and where they happened. Mm-hmm. So like right by when they got to that door, it said beat. and then right after that it said lady, and then you had the pie thing and all that, and then it said her name, her last name, and medicine cleansing outside.
Okay.
Wait, when did it say? So, and here's the thing, though,
Sort of
too.
like Pictionary with ghosts.
Right.
Keep going.
We don't honestly know. So, okay, we don't know how this thing's actually working either. I don't know how there's not a lot of documentation out there because this thing is sold as a toy, frankly.
Right.
It's sold as like an entertainment thing.
It's the new hip Ouija board.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God.
Like when you listen, when we buy even like stupid in the lab, when you buy like a thermometer, it comes with 100 pages of documentation.
Right.
To say like this is how you use it, this is when you get a false reading, this is the calibration method, this is the standard between these things, right? So I would be surprised if they don't have some programming in that thing where it's not actually putting together, it's not actually doing phonetic sounds in the sense that it's like what am I trying to think of? Like I don't think it actually could come up with any word. Is what I'm saying. I think it's still pulling from a list of either a list of pre-programmed in words that you tell it will be a certain frequency. Because I also couldn't find a dictionary online that this thing has or uses, right? Because that would be very telling. Like I was saying before, if every we have a list of 2,000 words that it can pick from. If every word is spooky stuff, then anytime you get a hit and you're looking for ghosts, it's going to seem important.
Right.
You know what I mean? On the other side of that as well, I think, Marie, you make a really good point, which is, what if it's just muddled enough that they could have picked anything, right? Corbin can also sound like, I don't know, Darwin or Dwarven or, right? Like you can, in the heat of the moment there, you can pick a lot of different things out.
There's a lot of things. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think it's still interesting. And I think all of those things actually in succession, like Rob was saying, does point to something interesting happening there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Lady, water, pie, even pie, as silly as it was, can tell you something. You know what I mean? But like that's actually one thing we always joke that I would love to get my hands on one of those things and actually put it through its paces. You know?
Yeah.
Like Rob,
totally.
you said you actually like did it with a vacuum cleaner and stuff.
Yuck.
Like and saw how it works.
Yeah, you.
Actually,
if you take a standard EMF detector, and you walk outside and you walk underneath the power line, it's going to spike 20, guaranteed.
Of course,
so,
yeah.
And like all paranormal investigators, they may not know how to properly use them, but if you're a good investigator, you go get baseline readings in whatever room you're in. So, beforehand, before you do the investigation. But
absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of those meters I've used before. And there's one thing about the Ovilus too, and most Ovuluses that I've seen on TV. And I don't think they actually got a camera shot of it, but like most of them will display the word on the device.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Is if it looked like it had a screen on it.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, I couldn't see it too well, but
yeah. But most of them do display the word. I'm not sure. It may have been a different model or whatever, or maybe they just didn't have, the thinking at that point. Hey, let's put the camera on it. But yeah, most of them do have displays on them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other reason why I wonder about that phonetic mode. Like, if it was saying, if its library of phonetic sounds or phonetic words is really limited, then you could get a false positive. Like, if you were trying to say car hit, but it only had in its thing car and hit or core and hid. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of different wordplay you can get into here that might be of interest, at least. So, anyways, that was, I thought, the best evidence I saw in that whole episode. What did you mean? It sounds like that's true for everyone.
Yeah, I think so.
I liked it. I thought the poor little machine was hungry.
That's true. I think Rob Lowe.
Hi.
Bye. Yeah, it reminded me of like a little
you
kid.
need to make food sacrifices to the machine in order to get it to work.
Oh my goodness!
power
You know what?
grows.
I just started reading. Stephen King's Night Shift. And there's the story in that one where there's like the washing
The
machine,
mangler.
the press and fold machine. Yeah, the mangler.
Yeah.
Right. And the ending is so. It was like I was scared, but then I started laughing because I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this. So silly, but so scary.
Well, it's
Anyways.
just
That
hungry. It just wants some
perfectly-
pie.
That
Pie.
perfectly sums up this show. So silly, but so scary. I think that Rob Lowe single-handedly, with that piece of evidence, cured me of my lifelong paralyzing fear of death. So thank you, Rob Lowe. Thank you.
There's pie in the
pie.
afterlife.
Yes, that's
be
really what
cool.
I'm worried about.
We're good.
Or
We're
what
good
if
with
it's
pie.
really just people are
Nice.
just hungry in the afterlife and they can't get food?
Oh God,
That'd be bad. That'd be horrible.
And guess what?
I would not
It's
do
back.
well there.
I'm
It's
sorry,
back.
Sam. I'm
You
sorry.
brought it back. Thanks,
crippling,
Rob.
crippling
sorry.
ennui back.
Yeah.
Back on me.
Buzz that down. Buzz.
All right.
I will say my I think just in general my favorite part of this, and we haven't really gotten into the part where him and John Owens are sitting and looking at lights and there's moving balls and stuff like that. But what kind of did it for me in this episode, besides them hearing the last name, was just Rob Lowe kind of watching his son, who was the skeptic and the cynic, sort of have this sense of like not wonder but like belief. And like that to me was actually was the most genuine part of this, and just thinking like, you know, here's this dude who went to A&E and pitched a show basically to get some downtime with his kids, right?
Yeah.
It's clearly grown, you know, they're both in school, they're grown. You know, and as a parent myself, like you have this limited time where your kids think that there's magic in the world, right? Before they are sort of brought in and disillusioned by becoming an adult, inevitably, right? And just, especially, I can imagine growing up in Los Angeles and having your dad be famous. It's probably, you have a very short window. And it was just sort of sweet to see him watching his son get all wide-eyed and being like, oh my God, it turned green, you know, and you could tell, like, he had this genuine sort of sweetness about it. And that's what I actually thought was the most moving part of the episode, right? And, you know, but I don't know about the ball moving and the other stuff. Like, the logistics around that, I was a little bit like... And then when they went outside and used the Bible with Shaman John.
Shaman read from the Bible.
It
cleanse
the
a
show-
ghost that none of them
The
know.
show kind of has echoes in the show that Jack Osborne did with Ozzy on the History Channel, where they're basically kind of going around doing the same thing, but Jack Osborne has, I believe he has MS. So, you know, it kind of echoes that same thing. There's that kind of sentimental thing where you're on this road trip with your dad.
Yeah, I think, I mean, overall, it's definitely worth a watch, for sure. If you're listening to this and you're on the fence, although we kind of spoiled the whole episode for you, so sorry.
Yeah, you really should have
That's a
done
good
that
one.
before you listen to this.
Yeah.
You really should have. That's
Yeah.
on you, listener.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's a recap.
You
You're
fool.
supposed to spoil
Yeah.
it. It's a recap. So do we think, so conclusively, and granted we haven't gotten all the way through, but do we think that, like, was Rob Lowe successful in convincing his kids that these
Yeah,
that
see-
there's-
Oh,
if-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if the goal of this show was to convince Rob Lowe's kids that there is spooky stuff still, I think they succeeded.
Yeah.
I think congrats, Rob Lowe.
But
you
I think,
did it.
Yeah.
like, also, too, and to get back to that sentimental feel of it, it's like, that's not the way Rob Lowe sees it, because he says at one point, it felt like I was sometimes surrounded by real people. And I
yeah.
love that about that, and that whole ending monologue, I gotta say, it hit me in the feels.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Very
I think
emotional.
Well, he's
Yeah.
Rob Lowe for a reason,
Yeah.
man. He's good.
he's a great
He
actor.
is.
He's good.
And evidently just like a good dad and a great guy, it seems like. So that's really cool. One last bit I just wanted to get to, because again, I'm like a big, science nerd.
Uh-huh.
Is
You don't say.
some of the questions they asked had me all steaming at home. Like, I was, like, throwing potato chips at the TV, like, no, Rob Lowe, don't do that. So, one quick thing I wanted to point out, at least, for you listeners, when you go to watch these other types of ghost shows and stuff, is look, when they ask a question, try to figure out for yourself if there's a way for them to get an answer that means that there isn't a ghost in the room with them. Right? So, look to see if that question is asked in a way that it's trying to set up success for itself, even if the person doing it doesn't realize, you know? And that's the thing, like, when you make a survey, if you read a survey from, like, an online newspaper versus a survey that's given to you by a real, like, statistician or a survey company, they are completely different. They're, like, the real statistical survey, a really good survey, is worded in such awkward, tortuous ways as to make it so that you can't possibly guess what the survey writer wants you to tell them, right? And it leaves open so much room for interpretation that sometimes it's even hard to answer. You're like, I don't know what to say here, you know? And so one really good example of that is on a survey. If it asks you some, like, tough political question that, like, would require, you know, some knowledge of a situation, like, I don't know, I mean, do you think that this particular law is effective? And it doesn't actually give you the name of the law, it just gives you the wording, or, like, it just gives you a number or something. Sometimes they will just give you the options yes, no, or maybe, but not put a not applicable or I don't know column. And so it means that you answer, but your answer is a false something. It's either a false positive or a false negative or a false neutral, because you don't actually have an opinion on that. You can't possibly have one, right? In the context of ghost hunting, a question like that would be, you're looking at a electromagnetic light up reader. It's already lit up with some color, say for instance green, and you say to it, if this is the ghost of Anna, please change it to another color besides green. Right? Because if it doesn't change, then it is a ghost, but it's just not Anna. Right. But if it does change to green, then it's Anna's ghost. Right. In either case there, you have evidence of a ghost that you've just presupposed. Right?
Yeah, but in this one case, because that happened, you know, as you'll know, if you haven't already watched it, as you will soon know, that happened. And the weird thing about it was, and granted, it could be coincidence. I don't know. I'm one of those hippies that, like, doesn't believe in coincidence, man. And, like, you know, let's talk about entropy and, like, shit like that. And it happened right when he said that. Not right, but, like, within a minute or 2 minutes, or at least that's how it looked. Now, you know, editing and all that, but it was pretty suspicious, one way or the other, that it actually happened.
I think the problem is that, again, they've left themselves open, though, for false positives, right? Yeah. There's no, like... I mean, that's the problem with these EMF readers in general, is, like, they are using a buttload of electromagnetic equipment to start with. Like, I bet they all still had their cell phones on them. Right. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, they did, because he taped it, or he...
Yeah. He pulls out his iPhone. Like, you have an iPhone. That's giving off radio waves all the time.
Yeah, but that was after
it's always giving electromagnetic waves, right? Yeah. But still, like even their cameras and the infrared lights, all of that is giving signal as well. Like, if I had to design, this was something that we said we might get to, but maybe not. Whatever, we're getting to it real quick. Boom. If I was going to design a perfect, like, ghost hunt like this, it would be, you would not put a person in the room. You would have a camera in a dark room that's supposed to be haunted and an EMF reader, and that would be it.
Yeah, but that's not going to make very good reality TV.
I know, but it's going to be good science.
And that's the difference. Yes, it's going to make excellent, perfect science. It's not going to... The execs at A&E are looking at you like, so...
That's never going to happen.
We're going to looking at a dark room for how long here? Is there... Are there noises? And you're like, no noises! No equipment! Nothing to throw it off!
No people. It would just be a half hour of, like, me looking at a MacBook.
It's a show about nothing. Yes!
It's Seinfeld.
It's the new Seinfeld 2.0. Yeah.
Another good way they could do that, though, actually, that might be a little bit more practical, Marie, is...
Just saying, if it's going to be televised, if it bleeds, it leads. You know?
Yeah, that's true. If you could even minimize the background noise, and I don't mean noise like literal noise, I mean, like static electricity, other electromagnetic waves, whatever. Even you put like a Faraday cage, or you have a Faraday cage you bring with you, or you just put it over the windows, or you know what I mean? Like, there are ways to limit, or even like what Rob said, you take a background reading at first. Mm-hmm. There are ways to do that where you could minimize that error. But so when I see evidence like that, like, I bet it was spooky, I bet it was scary, and it is compelling. But again, like, I mean, he pulls out his dang iPhone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that could have been a text message. There's that piece of evidence I don't think is nearly as compelling for me as the thing saying Corbin or Pi.
Well, and the problem too is it's like, for one thing, I didn't even know what those meters were. I have never seen those kind of meters before. They're kind of like a K2 meter, but like, they didn't explain exactly how it worked. It just said...
What do you mean by a K2 meter?
Yes.
Sorry.
Those of us who don't know
yes, a K2 meter is basically an EMF detector that when it reaches a certain range in milligauss, it lights up a different color. So there's like 5 different colors.
Okay, so that's actually a really good point. But sorry, Rob, I don't mean to cut you off. That's pretty much what all of their detectors were doing. They were all measuring the same thing. They were just outputting the results differently. So they were all getting a certain threshold of magnetic strength or electromagnetic field in milligauss or millitesla, whatever, and then outputting it either as a word, which would be the ovulus, or outputting it as a digital reading, which would be just the normal EMF reader, or outputting it as a color. But in all of those cases, it's measuring the same thing. So the fact that all of those things were going off at once isn't that exciting, because it was all measuring the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
But it was
I see what you're saying.
Anyways, continue though, Rob. Yeah, it was really cool.
But they did a really poor job of setting up the tech in this episode. That I was definitely kind of off put by that, because like, I had never seen that meter before, and like, I've seen them all before, but except for that one, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, hey, there's colors. Well, what do those colors correspond to?
Yeah.
I need to know.
Right.
Ghosts.
I also liked that they realized they realized halfway through that they were like, oh crap, our infrared lights don't measure color. And so we have to pull out our iPhone that we haven't shut off.
You guys.
All right.
It's beautiful. It was wonderful.
It was good. It was really good.
I was watching it with my roommate, and he sat. I had been hyping it up, and at the end of it, he looked at me and he's like, "That was not only the funnest and stupidest ghost hunting show I've ever seen, it was also the best and most believable ghost hunting show I've ever seen."
Yes.
Boom.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So that kind of leeways us very well into our conclusions here.
Nice.
Let's go through and 2 minutes each. Let's say what we thought. What do we think about the episode? So, Marie, let's start with you.
So I still love you, Rob Lowe. Let's just get that out of the way, and I'm making it up to you, baby. Little baby steps at a time with this.
Marie, every time you say baby, you dig the Twitter hole deeper, I think.
No, I don't. No. Rob, you know what I'm saying, baby. I think that I still, on watching it, I still don't... He is still so personable and still likable, but I still don't know how serious he is about any of this, which is kind of a good hedge in some ways. If you are a professional actor and you have this huge repertoire of movies, films, whatnot, and you're going to take this risk, right? Because doing some sort of supernatural thing for A&E is a little bit of a risk. And I don't doubt that he believes it, but he's sort of wink nudge enough that I question it. But I love what he's doing. I love that they went straight out of the gate into some big, bad, spooky place, and they went for broke. They threw down, and again, I don't know what any of these meters do. It lights up. It says pi. People were strangled fire up. That's some good stuff. And just sort of the interaction with his boys and his family, I thought it was some good things. And I'm kind of really looking forward to this season. It may only be one season, but I'm in it. I'm in it.
I dig.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Sam, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I have problems. But my problems aren't necessarily about, like, you know, are ghosts real? Because of course they are. And, like, is Rob Lowe a beautiful, wonderful person? Of course he is. Like, no contents.
Not debatable.
Pretty much all of my problems, if, as you may have guessed, focus on Shaman John. And I don't want to make this too much about him, but I feel like in him I have found an arch nemesis. And if nothing else, the show has given me that. So that's wonderful. I do, though. Like, I completely agree. My roommate, Josh, that's exactly how I felt. You know, this is the funnest. I grew up watching, especially, like, Most Haunted. And when Most Haunted got canceled, I, like, stopped watching ghost shows because it was the only one that, to me, had even a shred of, like, okay, these people, I'm sure in the end they were in it for money and all of this, but these people, like, seem to care, not just about the show, but about, like, potentially the spirits there and stuff like that. And while I agree with Marie that, like, who knows how serious he's being, I do feel like at a certain point, Rob called it out earlier, he says, like, at one point he felt surrounded by people. And
yeah,
I feel like...
Which was nice.
It was so nice. And it's funny because, like,
nice.
That's... Like, as someone who totally thinks ghosts are a thing and places are haunted, I actually believe that every house is a haunted house. You know, as somebody who comes at it from that mindset, like, it's so nice to be... That's the other big thing about on our show. Like, we try to remember that these people getting killed and, like, being terrified are people. And, like, they're not just there for your money as a cash grab or anything like that. And it's so authentic. It's so fun. Just a good time. Like, I envision myself not only doing this with my kids, but, like, watching the Low Files with my kids. Where we got it on iTunes. We're going to do that. It's going to be great. And I really hope, like, regardless of, which I'm sure we'll get into at another date, episode 2, but regardless of all of that, I hope it stays this way. I do think Rob Lowe got some actual, like, evidence, actual proof he can use. And I do think that this show is amazingly worth your time. And yeah, shout out. There we go.
Cool. Rob, go ahead.
So, I love you, Rob Lowe, and I love your show. I love it to death. I have watched since 2004, I've watched ghost shows be so serious. And I remember Most Haunted. I liked Most Haunted. And I remember what...
Oh, dude, it was the best.
And then,
it was a good show.
I remember what came after Most Haunted, and I'm still appalled by that abomination of a show, but we won't get into it.
Yep.
I didn't expect Rob Lowe to come in and show me anything new. I didn't expect him to show me anything I haven't seen before. What I loved is the reactions. What I loved is their interpretations of it, and just that the family bonding. The only obstacle in my way is Shaman John. If you had written him out, it would have been so much better. But Shaman John, you just... man. Sam's just going to get up, and he's going to trek through the United States just to find you. But... to me, it's not even the question of the seriousness of what they're doing, because everything that they're doing this season is so varied. Like, you're going to go to episode 2, and they're going to talk about the undersea anomaly right off of, like, Malibu. And you're going to get alien abductions this season. You're going to get Bigfoot. You're going to get remote viewing. You're going to get a little bit of everything. And I think that's...
It's a smart.
Yeah, that's what I love most about this show, is it's not focusing on one thing. It's focusing on many things. It's like the shows that I grew up with and loved, like In Search Of and Unsolved Mysteries and shows like that. That's what it reminds me of. I love it. I can't wait for more.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. I got to say, I mean, I think, like you guys, I think I found it was. I think the show was its best at the moments where it was non-formulaic to the standard of like a ghost show, right? And it really wasn't that way throughout. I mean, the only time when I'm a guy that rolls his eyes a lot at these kind of shows.
What? You're like
But
John Owens.
But I still watch them. I'm such a John Owen.
You're such a John Owen.
Such a John Owen. But I think same with you guys. The only time I really like rolled my eyes at this episode was Shaman John, and just being like, oh my goodness, come on, dude. I think it's a great show. I'm super excited for more of it. And yeah, I mean, I didn't really expect Rob Lowe to convince me of ghosts this episode. Just because, like, I don't know, I don't really expect that to happen from a TV show, I guess. I'm hoping I'll get, like, scratched or something in, like, Edinburgh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm hoping at the Covenanters prison, I'll get, like, I'm a ghost or something. I will say, I think they're going to, I mean, listen, if they don't do this sometime during this show's run, I'll think they really missed a big opportunity. I said this on Twitter too, but if they don't have Rob Lowe look at himself in a dusty mirror and say, stop spoofing, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be deadly
That's
upset.
my favorite Parks and Rec. That's my favorite part of that whole series.
It's the funniest thing. I mean, I laugh. I cry laughing. Even now, just thinking about it, for saying that sentence,
Yeah.
I am on the verge of tears laughing. Oh my God, my cat just tipped over everything
Spooky.
in my
Dude,
house.
ghosts. You got ghosts in your
think about
house.
having Adam Scott.
Oh my God, that would be
That would be
beautiful.
amazing.
Like a team
That would
up.
be
With
amazing.
Adam Scott for the Bigfoot, and Adam Scott could just be like sort of their straight
Yeah.
for that entire thing. That's, oh my God, we should get on the horn to A&E and just sort of or you guys put this forward since he's not taking my calls yet. Let him know.
Yeah.
Just
Actually,
it'll happen
though,
eventually.
if it's
will.
if
Oh,
it's
yes.
a
You
if it's a
will.
Bigfoot though, and they find a Bigfoot, there was a story broke in North Carolina that there was a shaman running around the woods dressed up in this
man.
like outfit that made him look like a Bigfoot.
Oh, I saw that.
So
It could
be
him.
Shaman
Could be
John.
Shaman
Sad
John.
end of
rolling.
Shaman John.
It's all publicity
Anyways.
stuff.
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming here to talk about this with us. We will be back. I think we're going to try to do this, weekly?
I think we
Yeah.
should try for it.
If we
He's
can,
given
weekly.
He's given us a lot to work
Yes.
with, you guys.
We're gonna
That's all I'm
listen. We're
saying.
gonna review every one of these episodes. We're gonna do them as roundtable episodes of this show. We also are gonna get to normal roundtables as well. I just had a month filled with family things and obligations and stuff that kind of made it impossible. So it was kind of unfortunate, but we're getting right back into it. If you've enjoyed this show, please go listen to the Not Alone podcast. Find them on iTunes,
Hello.
on all of your podcast apps. Rate them, help them on Patreon. They're phenomenal guys.
Stop it.
They're a great show, and it's good stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, once Rob gets
Actually,
a
you could
show-
just like if you want to support me, just find me and hug me. That's all you need to do.
That's all you
Yes.
gotta do. That's all you need. Just find
Tell me
Rob. It's all
I
good.
love you.
Oh Lord.
And with that, we're out. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week.
Peace.